Well, and actually, I would say this is a weakness of the Orthodox faith. I think that's significant, but and I think you would actually agree with me on this. Um, there's a real danger there in people who don't think for themselves, who kind of turn their brain off and just say, "Well, what has the church said?" And this is what Orthodoxy does. They highlight tradition versus looking to the Bible themselves. They just say, "Well, what has the church taught?" And so then they look at church history. And so in my mind, it takes away the personal responsibility to be a student of the word yourself.
Well, interpretation can't be found in the word. That's the whole point. You can read a scripture but come up with multiple interpretations of that scripture, and people do. That's why you have so many different Protestant denominations, because they're all coming up with their own interpretations. You can study the Bible all you want, but interpretation is discovering the intended meaning behind scripture,
Yeah.
and that has to be preserved over time. The only person who could truly answer those questions would be Christ or his apostles. But you could have someone who said, hey, uh, you know, Paul just said this. Now I, Timothy, I'm telling you what Paul just said. And then you go say what Timothy said. You can basically preserve what Paul said over successive iterations. And that's not available in Protestantism. What Protestants do is they'll take a scripture and they'll say, I think this is what Jesus would say this means. But they don't say they know.
Oh man, I don't know, Case. Well, one, this sounds like that's what happens in oral tradition. Someone's like, "Hey, I studied under Paul, therefore you can listen to me because I heard all of his words." And this is maybe what we have with the Haddiths in Islam. Each teacher saying, "This is what the Prophet Muhammad was really trying to say," but you got different Hadiths based on if it was his family or if it was his friends or whatever, and like pass through the line. But Christianity is different. We have a written word, and I mean, and they have the Quran, and anyway. But so the Bible, it's not like we're trying to scrape together what did the Apostle Paul try to teach his followers. We have it. It's written down. We have his mail. We have his letters. We have his theology written down. So it's not this mystical thing that it seems like you're making it out to be, where we need some interpreter who somehow 2,000 years later has some ordination from previous saints. We can look at and we can be scholarly about it. We can know the original language. We can know the historical events that have happened. There's great. So I'm advocating for scholarliness. We need to be better scholars of the Bible. It seems like what you're saying is we just need to follow what the church has said. And again, it's for me, it's like that's just turning your mind off. I'm much more of an advocate of helping every person find that next level of scholarship with the Bible, because there's depths there that you could spend your whole life trying to find. But the interpretation you can find, like you can find truth. You don't need to go through a priest to find what the Bible is trying to say.
So that's your experience. That wasn't my experience. My experience in the Protestant church was that people presented multiple interpretations, and that if I've ever had a question about what a verse meant, I would be greeted with many, many different answers. And it was impossible to sift through them because I was going to them for an answer. How can I decide which one of them is right when I'm the one who's asking the question in the first place? So the problem with Protestantism for me at that time, and it still is that there is no consensus on a given passage, and you'll find people all on the entire spectrum when it comes to interpreting scripture. And it turns out that the interpretations are oftentimes mutually exclusive, and that's where you get a lot of the heresies in the past that the church had to deal with, that people were saying that Christ wasn't truly divine, that he was only a man, or that he didn't have two natures, or lots of different things that undercut the teachings of the apostles. And so it was necessary for the church to come in and weigh in on that and say, no, this is a heretical teaching, it's not actually what Scripture is trying to say.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this clip, go check out the full video of that guest or some other guests over here. Also, follow us on social media right over here. We're a podcast right over here. YouTube subscribe is down here. Notifications is over here. Do all the things. We're excited you're here.